Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Dark and Deadly by T.O. Fallon, narrated by Vanessa Daniels. Chapter 1. Tess bolted upright, gasping for air. Her heart beat fast and hard. Am I having a heart attack? Her cell phone lit up, vibrating on the bedside table like a swarm of bees. She flinched, caught somewhere in that foggy void between deep REM sleep and being fully awake. When her eyes finally focused, she stared at the phone. It was a number she didn't recognize, but she did know the area code. Alabama. Her blood went colder than ice water. Only one person in all of Alabama had her number. This could be the call she'd been waiting for 10 long years. Again, the phone shrilled. Her hands trembled as she snatched up the phone. Please, please, please be him, and not the one person she feared most in her life. Gripping the phone tighter, she swiped the screen. Hello? Tess? A man, a very young man, said in a slightly familiar voice. It's Jesse. Her eyes widened, and the corners of her mouth lifted. It had to be him. His voice was deeper than when she'd last heard it, but she'd recognize his southern cadence anywhere. Jesse, she whispered. Oh my God. Her heart began pounding again, but this time from sheer joy. Is it really you? Yeah, Tessie, it's me. I can't talk long. Things are messed up. I want out. A police siren wailed in the background. Shit, I gotta go. No, don't hang up. The siren wailed again, louder this time. Jesse! Jesse! The call ended. No! She punched up the most recent number, but it went right to voicemail. Jesse, call me back. Call me back. Unable to sever the only link she had between her and her brother, she stared at the screen for a few more seconds before hanging up. Oh no. She held the phone tightly to her chest, rocking back and forth. Her emotions vacillated between outright joy that Jesse had finally reached out to her after all this time, and gut-wrenching fear, because something was wrong. Very wrong. Her hand shook. There was no mistaking the panic in her brother's voice. It had practically screamed through the phone. The worst part was that she couldn't help him. I don't even know where he is. If what she suspected was the motivating force behind Jesse's call after all this time, it could mean only one thing. Evil was coming for him, and soon it would come for her. Son of a bitch. The pickup's bed cap sailed off the back of the truck, missing Eric's SUV by inches. He glanced in the rearview mirror. Luckily, the cap had bounced harmlessly onto the shoulder. Claws scrabbled in the kennel behind him, followed by disgruntled huffs and snorts. Still snorting, Tiger thrust his dark brown muzzle through the cage opening. Hang on, pal. He punched it, and the Interceptor's 365 horsepower engine kicked in, rocketing the SUV down the highway. Strobes lit up the Interceptor like a Christmas tree. The siren wailed like a banshee, and still the pickup didn't pull over. So much for a quiet federal Friday. The pickup serpentined through traffic like the highway was the driver's personal NASCAR track. His speedometer's needle passed 85 and was approaching 90. This guy's got balls, I'll give him that. There's no way he can outrun an Interceptor. ATF special agents didn't normally do car stops or high-speed chases, but the 4 55-gallon drums in the back of the truck slid around with enough momentum to launch them right over the tailgate and crashing through someone's windshield. With the Interceptor's engine roaring, he easily stayed close to the pickup, but far enough from the bumper in case the driver suddenly decided to pull his brains out of his ass and hit the brakes. At 6 a.m., the westbound lanes of I-78 were nearly empty. Good thing, because this brainless road warrior was going to kill someone. The truck fishtailed, then veered right toward an exit ramp. Eric checked his rearview mirror, then cut hard right to give chase on the service road. "You okay back there, Tiger?" His canine's dark, almond-shaped eyes glinted in the bright morning light as he let out another snort. "Come on, pull over, you moron. What the hell's in those drums that's worth a high-speed chase? Time to wake the neighborhood." He pushed a button, and the interceptor's air horn blasted. If the town wasn't awake before, it was now. Another minute went by before the truck finally braked and pulled onto a shoulder adjacent to a steep hill. About effing time. Keeping half an eye on the driver's side door, Eric flipped up the lid on his mobile computer. The tag came back not on file. Odd. The truck had to be at least 20 years old, so the tag should have been in the system. Unless it was stolen and someone had swapped in an inactive tag. Behind him, Tiger pranced back and forth on the bench, eager to go to work. "Blythe," he ordered his dog, and Tiger responded with a disappointed grunt. Eric wanted his canine to remain in the SUV until he got a bead on the driver. If anything went down, all he had to do was hit the door popper on his belt, and the kennel door would fly open, releasing Tiger to back his ass up. He activated the dash cam, then opened his door. The air was typically hot and humid for mid-July, with a stiff, warm breeze blowing in from the east. With one hand on his Glock, he stepped toward the back of the truck, watching it for signs of movement. As he neared the tailgate, details of the Alabama plate caught his attention. The paint color was off, and the crane looked more like a duck. No wonder it's not on file. The tag's bogus. If he hadn't spent 9 years working out of the Birmingham RAC office, he might not have known. But he did. Hairs on the back of his neck prickled. With his free hand, he pressed his fingers against the truck's left rear quarter panel. If this went to shit, not only would there be video, but his prints would be left behind for investigators to find in the event that he was found cold and dead on the side of the road. His heart beat out a steady rhythm, not fast, not slow, just enough to pump more adrenaline through his veins because something was royally off. He could taste it. More to the point, he could feel it in his bones, and his bones were sending out a warning louder than a detonated stick of dynamite. The back of the driver's head was visible through the rear window. Cautiously, he approached and knocked on the side door. It's just a kid. With a shock of curly red hair. He'd only seen hair that vibrant once before in his life, but that had been on a woman. Slowly, the window rolled down. At nearly 6'4" in his boots, Eric easily looked down into the cab. Most people would have their wallet or driver license ready for inspection, but the only thing this kid had was a stack of papers in his lap, a diversionary tactic used by sovereign citizens, and the very thing that had gotten 2 police officers killed in West Memphis, Arkansas. But sovereign citizens were few and far between in New Jersey. Eric tightened his grip on the Glock. He was a hair's breadth from drawing down on the kid. He glanced to the back of the pickup, then over his shoulder. No one else was there, but something was so off it made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up even straighter. The kid's hands began to shake. "Step out of the vehicle." Eric backed off enough to allow him to get out. The driver opened the door, taking the 3-inch thick pile of documents with him. He was just under 6 feet and skinny as a rail, weighing in at around 150. Fear brimmed in the kid's bright green eyes. "Get out your driver license, registration, and proof of insurance," he ordered. I got papers," he answered in an Alabama drawl, then thrust the documents at Eric's chest. Eric backed off more, tightening his grip on the gun. The pulse that had been beating slow and steady began pounding in his ears, screaming out an even louder warning. "Don't move." His free hand hovered over Tiger's door popper as he again flicked his gaze to the back of the truck. "Here," the kid said. "Don't you want to look at these?" As he yanked the gun from its holster, the kid threw the stack of papers in Eric's face and took off running. Game on. He'd half expected to be gunned down, but a foot chase? That he could do. He holstered, then bolted after the kid, hitting Tiger's door popper as he vaulted over the railing and hauled ass down the hill. A brindle blur shot past him. No surprise. Eric ran 10 miles every other day, but he'd never outsprint his canine. For a scrawny kid, he was fast and already shooting into the tree line a good 20 yards away. Tiger disappeared into the trees. Seconds later, a high-pitched cry shattered the morning quiet. A human cry, that was. At the bottom of the hill, he pounded to the trees, redrawing his weapon. Tiger's front legs were on the ground, his back arched as he maintained a firm bite hold around the kid's calf. "Get him off! Get him off, please, mister! Get the dog off me!" Eric resisted, chuckling. "Yeah, now it's please, mister." He holstered his Glock. "Los." Tiger released the kid's leg but kept a wary eye, letting loose with an occasional growl from the back of his throat. Eric flipped the boy onto his belly, then cuffed and searched him. The only thing on him was a thin wallet and a cell phone. "Let's go." He hauled the kid to his feet. At the top of the hill, he sat him on the shoulder in front of the interceptor, then reached into the vehicle to call for a backup transport. A stiffer wind kicked up, blowing in the direction of the pickup. Tiger stood guard over the boy, his black nostrils flaring as he took in hundreds of scents on the swirling air currents. When the boy looked at Tiger, those green eyes were filled with an odd mixture of wariness and curiosity. Eric tugged a few folded pieces of paper from the kid's wallet. No ID. The only thing of any interest was an old, wrinkled photograph. Looked like his prisoner, only years younger. In the photo with him was a girl, slightly older. Both had the same vibrant red corkscrew hair and sharp green eyes. The boy he'd never met until today. He was sure of it. Something about the girl was familiar. He flipped the photo over. In faded blue pen were the words Jessie and Tess. The date beneath the names was 10 years ago. The breath caught in his throat. It can't be. But it was, and holy shit. The resemblance he should have recognized earlier was now clear as a bell. How could I have missed it? Still, he had to be certain. "What's your name?" "Jessie." He took a step closer until he was towering over the boy. "Jessie what?" "McTavish." Oh, hell. He let out the breath he'd been holding. Tess McTavish. The woman he'd once wanted so badly he couldn't think straight. A woman he'd never so much as kissed, yet she still plagued his dreams. He'd lost count of how many times he'd woken, aching and sweaty, sorely in need of a cold shower, to snap him out of the steamy dream he'd been having of the two of them, together, in his bed. He shook his head. Man, don't go there. Red tape first. Answers second. He slipped a card from his cargo pants and read the boy his constitutional rights. The kid didn't respond that he wanted an attorney. Kind of surprising, considering Eric's theory about what the boy was involved in. "How old are you?" he asked. 18. "Why'd you run from me?" Not having a license wasn't enough to get someone arrested. Running from the police or federal agents was. Jessie averted his gaze. "Like I told ya, I don't got no license." "Bullshit." Didn't take a world-class detective to see the kid was lying his ass off. "Don't move," he ordered Jesse. Then to Tiger, "Bewachen," commanding his canine to guard. Tiger dipped his head and let out a low snort, as if saying, "Yes, sir." Eric went back to the pickup and searched the area around the driver's seat. Since the truck would be impounded and all contents itemized, he didn't plan on an in-depth search incident to arrest. As he viewed the contents of the truck, he was more and more convinced there was a boatload more going on here than just an unlicensed driver. A backpack lay on the floorboard. More documents were strewn on the seat. He picked a few up, scanning them before tossing them aside. Every sheet contained rambling, twisted, anti-government rhetoric, declaring sovereignty from paying taxes, getting driver's licenses, and any other fee the almighty system could drum up. It was all pseudo-legalese mumbo-jumbo. He'd seen it before. In Alabama. Carefully and methodically, he looked around the cab's interior for anything out of place within arm's length of the driver's seat. There. His pulse began to race. Two seams in the plastic between the steering column and the radio portion of the dashboard were bowed slightly outward, creating a gap. This, too, he'd seen before. He tugged a knife from his belt and stuck it in the seam, using it as a pry bar. One side of the plastic popped off and fell to the floor. Staring back at him was exactly what he expected. A pistol taped to the inside of the plastic. A 9mm Beretta, to be precise. This is bad. Too many things were adding up to be discounted as coincidence. Sovereign citizen documents, no license, registration, or insurance. Lastly, the hidden gun. When Eric had worked in Birmingham, he'd run into someone who liked to hide weapons in that exact spot next to the steering column. Harley Gant, the sovereign citizen leader who'd murdered his friends and gotten away with it. Tiger barked, followed by a sharp whine. His dog swung his head back and forth from where he guarded Jesse McTavish to the back of the truck. Eric ducked out of the pickup, noting the wind had shifted, doing a 180 and now blowing from the direction of the pickup directly at his canine. When his dog whined again, it wasn't Tiger's "I gotta pee" whine. This was his "I found something you gotta see" yowl. "Los," he said, releasing the dog from his guard post over the boy. Tiger whirled toward the truck, rising on his hind legs and resting his front paws on the tailgate. The dog's black nostrils flared repeatedly as he took in scents coming off the drums. His tail whipped back and forth. Tiger just hit on those drums. When he turned to face Jesse McTavish, the boy swallowed hard, his eyes wild with panic. The deep pile of shit the kid had stepped in just got a whole lot deeper. Eric couldn't be absolutely certain what was in those drums, but he could guess. Explosive material. When sovereign citizens and explosives got together, people died. Chapter 2. Tess eased her beat-up Camry into a space on Mulberry Street. Her belly flip-flopped as she stared at the 3-story gray courthouse that looked more like a mausoleum. Somewhere inside that building was her baby brother, the little boy she'd abandoned 10 years ago. He must hate me. She'd thought about taking him with her, but without money to buy food and clothes and put a roof over their heads, it seemed more prudent at the time to leave him where he was until she could get settled and find a job. When that time had come, she found a discreet way to get money to him and make sure he had her cell phone and email address. But he never responded to any of her messages and never reached out to her. Until 5 hours ago, right before getting arrested. A lump the size of a grapefruit lodged in her throat. Regardless of how much she tried making things right with him, the guilt still ate away like acid in the pit of her stomach. Let's do this. After one hugely deep breath, she turned off the engine and threw her keys into her leather shoulder bag. The plan was to get more information on the charges Jesse faced, then find a way to pay his bail so he didn't have to spend a single night in jail. I owe him that much. She was about to lock up the car, but turned at the last second to dig out the heavy black metal pen she kept with her at all times. One half was an actual ballpoint pen, while the other housed a small blade that could be whipped out at a moment's notice. It probably wasn't legal to carry it, but the risk was worth it. At 5'2", she'd learned the hard way that people tried to take advantage of women, particularly one so petite. Better to beg for forgiveness than to ask for permission. Figuring she'd have to go through a metal detector, she stowed the pen in the console, then locked up the car and slung the bag over her shoulder. Strands of beads and crystals attached to the bag made comforting clicking and clacking sounds as she crossed the street and stepped onto the curb. She dug her fingers into her skirt pocket and tightened her fingers around the 3-inch Herkimer diamond quartz crystal, the one she kept there for good luck. Lord knows we need it, Jesse and her. Between the handgun and whatever was in those drums, he faced serious legal problems. Her issues were far less pressing at the moment, yet they were totally screwing with her chi. She nearly stumbled, catching herself before plowing headfirst into a mailbox. Like it or not, she was about to face her past, one she'd worked damn hard to put behind her. Her life paths were not only on the verge of crossing, but crashing at the intersection. Of all the people who could possibly stand between her brother and serious jail time, why, oh, why did it have to be Eric Miller? Special Agent Eric Miller, to be precise. It had been 9 months since she'd seen Eric. It had been for the absolute best that nothing had ever happened between them. But the prospect of coming face to face with him again was enough to make her heart beat faster and her belly twist into knots. She gave the Herkimer diamond in her pocket one last squeeze, then tugged on the courthouse's massive door handle. Once inside, she showed her ID to a guard in a navy blue jacket who directed her to place her belongings in a plastic bin, then walk through the metal detector. She did as instructed, and the machine remained silent. No bells, no whistles, and no flashing red lights. After collecting her bag, she hastily made her way to the U.S. Marshal's Service office on the 2nd floor. Her sandals made flopping noises that echoed in the cavernous granite corridor. Christ, this place really is like a mausoleum, inside and out. Along the way, she began questioning her decision not to ask for help. When she'd left Springfield that morning, it had been too early to wake her boss and best friend Andy, so she'd left a cryptic message on the Dog Park Cafe's voicemail, notifying Andy that she wouldn't be in for a couple of days due to a family issue. Beyond that, she said nothing. Tess liked Andy's new husband, Nick, but he was a Massachusetts state police sergeant, and the last thing she needed was another cop getting involved in her family issues. My family issues would choke a wild boar. Besides, the last time she'd gone to a cop for help, things hadn't gone well. Granted, that was a long time ago, but the betrayal still stung. A woman behind a thick glass window directed her to an uncomfortable-looking row of plastic chairs. Tess sat, then looked around the waiting area at the many police emblems on the wall and the clock. With every turn of the second hand around the dial, she gripped her bag tighter. Eventually, her fingers cramped, and her palms began to sweat. Heavy-booted feet echoed on the other side of a metal door. She sat rigid, staring at the door as it creaked open. A man wearing khakis, a navy blue polo, and a gold badge clipped to his belt came through. He was short, stocky, and with brown hair. Not blonde, blue-eyed, and Viking size, like Eric. The breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding whooshed from her mouth. Pent-up adrenaline ebbed from her veins like a receding tide, leaving her exhausted, and this ordeal had only just begun. "Miss McTavish?" Good guess, considering she was the only person in the waiting room. "Don't be snarky." "This way." The cop, a deputy U.S. Marshal, held the door for her, then indicated she should follow him down the dingy gray hallway. Behind them, the heavy metal door closed with a resounding thunk. Her entire body tightened. So this is what a caged animal feels like, trapped and helpless. More booted feet clumped at the end of the hallway. Then several uniformed officers rounded the corner. Not Eric. She was both relieved and disappointed. As the arresting officer, he had to be skulking around somewhere. "Where is Special Agent Miller?" she asked the deputy. "Out getting a sandwich." He stopped to open a door, then waited for her to go in the room. Nice. Her brother was locked up, about to face the powerful wrath of the federal government, and all Special Agent Miller could think of was filling his belly. "Thank you." Taking a deep breath, Tess went inside. As the door clicked shut behind her, she started to turn and ask if she was locked in, but stopped when the young man sitting beside a small table stood. Her throat went dry. Jesse. He was tall and skinny, and wearing a filthy white t-shirt. For a long moment, they stared at each other. His shock of curly red hair and green eyes were so like her own. He was the same as she remembered, yet different. Her heart threatened to burst from her chest. The boy she'd once known, sweet and lovable, was still there in his eyes and in the gentle expression of his face. Now, those childlike nuances mingled with the gangly limbs of a teenager still on the verge of manhood. Raw emotion left her incapable of speech. "Tessie?" Her name croaked from his lips as he stood. Tears began streaming down his pale cheeks. "Oh, Jesse." The bag she'd had a death grip on fell to the floor as she ran past the table and threw her arms around him. Long, skinny arms came around her back, holding her tightly. Tears spilled nonstop from her eyes. Her breaths came in shaky sobs. It's a miracle. After all this time, they were together. Tess vowed then and there never to leave him again. No matter what hoops she had to jump through, she'd find a way to get him out of this mess. It wouldn't be easy, because she knew damn well their stepfather had orchestrated it. As much as she wanted to continue holding her little brother, there was work to be done. If she didn't get a grip on her emotions, she'd never be able to get him, or herself, through this. Still sniffling, she eased away enough to look up into his watery eyes. "Look at us," she laughed tightly. "Messy Tessie and Messy Jessie." At her use of their dead mother's affectionate nicknames, Jessie grinned. "Please forgive me. I never should have left you there." It had been the most difficult thing she'd ever done. "Don't be." He shook his head. "You had to get out of there, and I knew that." Stop." She pressed her fingers to his mouth, glancing at the monitor bolted to the ceiling in a corner of the room, then looking quickly back to Jesse until she was certain he understood her concern. The monitor didn't appear to be on, but she couldn't be sure. Standing on her tiptoes, she put her mouth to his ear, whispering, "Do not mention his name. Ever. Don't mention any of them by name. It will only make things worse. Do you understand?" When he nodded, she removed her fingertips from his lips. He pulled her closer, putting his mouth to her ear. "He never hurt me. He took it all out on you. When you ran away, he went crazier than an outhouse rat. If you stayed, he would have killed you. Or even worse things would have happened." "I know." Her stomach felt queasy. Memories, bad ones, rushed back in a painful blur. But this is about you now.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?